So it's official now, Thunderbolts just failed spectacularly. I mean, right now they're putting up Eternals level numbers. They're right next to Eternals as a movie, and it's really surprising to a lot of people, because unlike Eternals, which was, widely believed to be kind of terrible, or at the very least subpar, Thunderbolts was considered to be, nearly there, like at that peak level. It wasn't a Civil War or a Winter Soldier level film, but it was pretty good film for most people say. And I think it's pretty cool as a film. It's not terrible. But you have a film that was widely liked by the fans, or at least some fans, and yet it did so terribly. Why is that? Well, I think there's several reasons why it did as badly as it did. What hits me most about it, and this hits me about a lot of the MCU and Star Wars and the other stuff like that, is that there was so much potential there. There was so much amazing potential to use in that thing. But man, these guys just messed it up. They messed it up. That's what they do. They just came in with all that potential and they messed it up. So what do I mean by that, all that potential though? Well, when you look at the MCU and the way it was being set up before for Thunderbolts, the setup to Thunderbolts, I thought they were setting up to that beforehand. Let's go, of course, spoilers for Thunderbolts. That's a movie. The end of the movie ends with this idea of, of having a new Avengers team. That's the main goal you're getting into the end. And the thing is, it was set up that way pretty early on. When you look at, back in Falcon Winter Soldier, the TV show, Disney Plus TV show that came out, you had some cool things going on there. You had this lady, Valentina, pop up at the end, and she made John Walker the U.S. agent. She made him, the U.S. agent. She gave him a role. He has a new suit, a new shield, and he's basically like a pseudo Captain America now with a super soldier serum running through his veins. So you kind of gave him a really cool idea to kind of end it out with. And then you see her also approach Yelena Belova, Black Widow's pseudo sister, who has similar Black Widow skills. So now you have a situation when you have two, like a pseudo Black Widow and a pseudo Captain America. And I thought they were going for, she's making a evil Avengers, so to speak. Not necessarily evil, but at least a more government-run Avengers. I think that's what they should have went with, because it's very similar to this storyline in the comics, which is called the Dark Avengers, where Norman Osborn puts together a sort of bootleg evil Avengers, getting different members to kind of take those roles. I thought they were going to do this with the MCU and just simply grab people from the MCU and do that. And I think that's very important. I think it would have changed up the film, because when you look at what they currently did, the idea of her putting together this team, the idea of the team itself becoming the new Avengers, they kind of suck as a team. Like, when you really look at it, they're terrible as a team. Not only is their dynamic not really cool or interesting, nothing about their dynamics at all is at all cool. It's all very surface level, all very terrible. But on top of not having great, team dynamics and character dynamics amongst themselves, you also have the even bigger issue of them all having, not being very interesting as, not just as characters, but with their powers and their abilities. They make a joke about that in the trailer, we just punch and shoot. That's all they can do. I mean, compare them to the original Avengers real quick. In the original Avengers, by the way, let me be clear, I'm talking about the MCU version, right? So Avengers 2012, the movie. You see a pretty interesting team put together, you have the higher level members. You have guys like Iron Man, he's an iron suit. He has his tech know-how. He has all these different gadgets he can bring out. He has the repulsors, the flight, the missiles, all that stuff. Very cool stuff from him, right? Along with an engaging and cool personality. And then you go to Captain America. Captain America does just punch and shoot for the most part, but he is a super soldier. He has a shield that can deflect everything, that comes at him, That's all very cool in of itself. So and he has that righteous, hero mentality. He's the man out of time from a earlier era. So that's interesting to see him clash with someone like Tony Stark, who's a more modern guy. So you have that. So that's pretty cool. Then you keep going on. You have the Hulk, a little super powerful rage monster. Storytelling potential with him alone is incredible, which is why he's one of the biggest and most famous MCU and Marvel characters in general. So you have the Hulk there, a very interesting personality there, along with, of course, Bruce Banner being super interesting as well to deal with. You have Black Widow, the super spy, she's a super spy for espionage, infiltration. She has very good abilities to, kind of navigate this massive, not landmine, I wouldn't say, but like a landfield, or minefield, of relationships. She's really good at navigating it, and she does want a family as well. So it's kind of like also a pseudo family for her. And then you have Hawkeye with his, incredible great accuracy, gadget hero, so he's very different. He has the espionage skills that Black Widow has, but to a lesser extent. And then finally, you have someone like Thor. Thor, the god of thunder, like a literal Norse heathen god, coming down with the hammer and lightning, his super strength, and all these other abilities. So you have a really interesting team, a team full of different personalities that engage with each other very interestingly, because Thor is kind of that fish out of water guy. You got, a Russian spy trying to turn good. You have a more shield spy who's, has a dynamic with her. Another thing they did is they had dynamics with different characters, Hulk and neither Bruce Banner and Tony Stark have their own dynamic. So does Iron Man, Tony Stark and, Steve Rogers. So does him and Thor. Everyone has their own dynamic with each other, and it makes it really interesting. When you compare that to the Thunderbolts, it's trash in comparison, right? You have Yelena Belova, discount Black Widow, and she doesn't have a really good dynamic with any other character besides maybe Alexis, the Red Guardian guy. I forget his last name. Last name's hard to pronounce. But Red Guardian, who's like our pseudo father, but they don't really go deeply into that much. So ultimately speaking, it's not really anything near as an engaging a relationship as any of the original Avengers relationships they had. On top of that, she can do all the things Black Widow can do, which is kind of cool, but she has way less connections, way less interesting things she can do with these teams. She's less good at navigating the spy type, relationship parts of it. She's not really good at that. So that's already kind of not as good. And you keep going on. You have, I just mentioned the Red Guardian, this Russian guy wants to be part of a super team way past his prime. And he's interesting alone, but he doesn't have any dynamics with any of the other characters besides, I just mentioned, what's her name, Yelena. Besides that, he has no real dynamics with anyone. He's just a loud guy. And his abilities are Captain America, super soldierness, but without any type of super weapon to help him out. He doesn't have a shield, doesn't have, all he has is a knife, I think, maybe a couple of guns, basically nothing. And then keep going from there, you go with U.S. Agent, who's literally discount Captain America. He has a discount shield that can be bent and broken by everything. Remember, Captain America's original shield took a hit from Thor. This shield that this guy has is made out of regular metal, and it gets bent by anyone super strong. So really not that impressive from that alone. He doesn't have a personality that really can mesh. He has a okay personality, by the way, this former soldier character, but doesn't really mesh with anyone else on the squad, besides maybe Winter Soldier, who is a former assassin, metal arm, kind of cool. But that's all he has. He has some gadgets, but that's nothing really impressive. He's trash. Let's be honest. He's kind of trash. Right now, currently, he was cool when he first came out. He's been cool for a little bit, but over time, Bucky is just not as cool as Winter Soldier is. When he comes down to it, he doesn't have the same amount of aura, same amount of ability. So, no, ultimately speaking, you have another guy who can punch, shoot, and that's about it. Punch, shoot, and knife people. And then you keep going on. You got Ghost. Ghost is, another person. She has intangibility, but besides intangibility at times, invisibility, intangibility at times, all she can do is punch and shoot too. So she's not that effective. She can turn intangible at times, but she rarely uses that power in any interesting way. She has no interesting dynamics with anyone on the team whatsoever. It's just a terrible made team. Like the entire team makeup, you look at it, is not good. And the last two members, Taskmaster was barely even a member of the team. She just ended up marketing, but of course, spoilers for the Thunderbolts film, she gets shot and killed immediately. So she was useless to the team in general, and her character wasn't that interesting to begin with. And then on top of that, you go with someone like Sentry. Sentry actually is a very interesting character. This guy who actually kind of he's very powerful, he's very cool, he has a lot of interesting abilities. He could have been very interesting on the team, but he has very little dynamics you can really do with him a lot. I think you would better use him as a type of Thor type character, again, someone that's a fish out of water. I think you could have gone deeper into that if you made him actually a team member, but again, he wasn't a team member for most of the movie, he was just Bob for most of the movie, so not a very great job there. So again, look at the entire team comparison to the Avengers, terrible. But what if you decided to actually do it better? We can bash the MCU all you want, but can you do better than the MCU? That's a big question. The thing is, they had the beginnings, the makings of something amazing, of the Dark Avengers type of idea, and they should have just got with that. Went with the Dark Avengers, went with Valentina making their own team, make it more like Suicide Squad. Instead of making it this thing where they're going against Valentina because she tried to kill them all, make it a thing where Valentina actually puts together a team and sends that team on one of these missions. And then at the end of the movie, they're still under her control rather than them owning her, which is weird. Instead of doing that, let her still be in charge of them like a evil Nick Fury. That could be super interesting. And then, of course, it makes that dynamic when they eventually have to have a conflict with Sam's Avengers, Sam's new Avengers, very interesting. Make them the Dark Avengers, make Sam and his group the new Avengers. A very cool little dynamic. You can have a nice fight between the two if you do it correctly. But again, I think part of it, again, was the members. You got to change up the members. The members that they currently have are not great. Some of the members can stay, but some of the members need to go. So, like, if I was doing it, say, just give me Thunderbolts, it's very obvious and cool what you could do. Like, it's so obvious to me when you look at it, because you keep U.S. agent, you want to keep him around. John Walker's a really cool character. Keep him around. He's nice to use. He's our discount Captain America. Pretty cool. We have a discount Black Widow. Let's keep her around. And then let's go ahead and keep Sentry. Sentry's a very powerful character. He can fill in for that fish out of water Thor character. His dynamics with the rest of the team could be very nice. But everyone else scrap that. Don't let Ghost in here. No one cares about Ghost. No one really is big into it. None of these characters, the problem I forgot to mention is none of these characters are really that big. You need to have some star power there. And now you need to start adding star power. I wouldn't add Bucky. As much as people love Bucky, I would just let Bucky be part of the new Avengers with Falcon. It makes more sense for him to be part of that team in the first place. But then you're probably asking, who's going to lead the team? Well, I think that it would be more interesting if she went with other more established characters. Make this entire thing full of established characters. So I would add 3 more members to the team, and they would fill the roles that we don't have from the original Avengers. Because she's trying to, Valentina, by the way, the evil Nick Fury, supposed to, in this version of the story, try to make her new Avengers team. So she's going to need a Iron Man. She's going to need a Hulk, and she's going to need, finally, a Hawkeye. And those roles can be easily filled with much more interesting candidates. Imagine she fills the Hulk role with Abomination. He's still alive. We saw him in She-Hulk. He's still alive. He was in Shang-Chi. He's still around. Imagine she pays that guy to be the new Hulk. And, she makes some type of situation to the press that, well, he's trying to atone for his sins. So imagine he, in the press, he's like this, the guy he's kind of saw in She-Hulk, where he's much more, nice and clearly a kind of not a good guy, but trying to play up the role of atoning for his sins, while in actuality he's an terrible human being, a monstrous human being. And you have to have people like U.S. Agent and Sentry have to deal with that regardless. That's already very interesting in of itself. But let's go further, right? For Hawkeye, she chooses Bullseye. This has happened in the comics before, where Norman Osborn, I mentioned before, had his Dark Avengers team, and he had Sentry on the team as well. That was the same type of dynamic with Sentry, but he made sure to get different members to follow the different roles. So for Hawkeye, he chose Bullseye, an evil, psychopathic killer for hire, and just paid him money to be Hawkeye, to wear this suit and basically be that guy. So imagine she does the same thing with Bullseye. He is another evil individual, another very, psychopathic individual, but he's playing up being a good person for the cameras and for, the media and the press. And imagine behind closed doors, he's just as bad. And him and Blonsky, which is the Abomination, him and Blonsky could kind of have their own type of dynamic, a Hulk and Hawkeye dynamic. That's something that happened in the comics, something that happened in the cartoons. But they have the evil inverse relationship where they're the evil Hulk and the evil Hawkeye kind of being friends and being kind of evil together. That would be super interesting to see those guys kind of be a little evil friend group right there. So now you have something very interesting. Now you have 2 evil members of the team that pretend are good to the public, but the people who are good on the team, Yelena Belova, Sentry, and U.S. Agent kind of know they're bad. I actually would switch it around. I wouldn't say Sentry knows. I think Sentry would be best as this kind of happy-go-lucky guy who kind of really believes that they're part of a team. He kind of really believes in the new Avengers more than anyone else does, which makes him a very interesting dynamic with everyone else because they're almost kind of have to fake it. The most powerful guy on the team is the most naive guy on the team. Very interesting to start out with. And of course, he has that equal void thing inside of him at the same time. That's all very interesting to actually use itself. But then the final member of the team and the leader is obvious. I think, again, we got a Hulk, we got a Hawkeye. We need an Iron Man. And the clearest Iron Man is obvious. War Machine. War Machine's a character that people already know about. Put him on the cover. People will buy that. He's already has the Iron Man type suit with his War Machine suit, and the idea is that, again, he's part of the U.S. government. So the idea is that, Valentina, who is the, leader of the situation, she's from the U.S. government. She kind of contacts him and says, would you like to lead this new Avengers team? And, he takes the role. It's kind of like not even an actual, it's more of an order type situation. This is the kind of the U.S. made Avengers, and Valentina being the kind of evil person, but also like shady Amanda Waller type person she is. It is still more public than usual. Then it's not like Suicide Squad completely, underground, but this is a more public US based Avengers team. And War Machine, getting him to lead it as he's a US soldier makes sense. And now you have a really cool dynamic. You have your Iron Man, War Machine, and your Captain America, U.S. agent, and those are going to be bonding over their, their shared soldier history. That could be very interesting to see them bond over that, and at the same time having to bond over the fact that both of them are guys who want to do good things, who want to be good people, but they want to serve their country at the same time. But at the same time, they have to work with, psychopaths like, Abomination and Bullseye, Then you have Yelena Belova on the team trying to live up to her sister's, legacy. And she's trying to be a good person, live up to her sister's legacy. But at the same time, she has to work with these terrible people, guys who are only good for the camera, only good for the paycheck. And in reality are more driven toward the evil side and doing evil, self-serving things than they are towards actually helping people. So with that dynamic, you have a really cool team together. You have a more powerful team. Now, if you have Void turn evil, perhaps, which would be a thing you probably do in the movie regardless, and you probably have a situation where Void, you kind of have to tell the public, which would also provide more tension, by the way, for the rest of the team knowing this, that Void is that Void was a totally different person, an evil being that wasn't connected to Sentry. And having to keep that lie in front of the public, and that secret getting out could be huge. That's already a very interesting, little line you can have. And now when they end up having to, have a conflict with Sam's New Avengers, it hits bigger now. It's different. Because instead of them being this random New Avengers that's kind of just popped up and was kind of crowned up by the people, you let Sam's team be the people's team, the team that the people actually kind of come up with. Well, the Dark Avengers, which are led by Rhodey and, led by War Machine, and that will be the team that the government has. That would be the official Avengers team. You know what I mean? And now you have a super cool dynamic. Again, your dynamic is amazing. It is cool to deal with. You have a battle between Rhodey and Sam, which would be just cool to have. That dynamic coming along. We have a thing of almost like Civil War, very similar to Civil War. It's almost a continuation of that because you have a government Avengers versus the people's Avengers. That alone is very cool, and then you also have more dynamics to deal with. Because when this new Avengers team goes against the other new Avengers team, which is the Sam's team, it's not going to hit the same because only member of that team that really matters to Sam is Winter Soldier. That's it. Like he doesn't know Helena Belova. He doesn't care about her. He doesn't know about He knows about U.S. Agent, but he's not like that big of a deal with him. Him and U.S. Agent left on bad terms, kind of not bad terms, but not great terms. So you have a different dynamic versus if you do the version I just laid out. Now you have a dynamic where it is U.S. Agent versus, versus Sam and his team. You have War Machine, someone that Sam actually cares about, someone that Sam has been around a long time, doesn't have any animosity towards. That's now much more interesting to see those teams actually have to fight each other. Now, of course, you have to figure out who Sam's team's going to be. That's a story for another time. Maybe I'll make a video about that later. But the basic line is that you would have a much cooler dynamic. And again, I think they were so close to greatness, and for some reason they chose the exact opposite way. The way they should have went with this Dark Avengers way, and they would have had a much more interesting, a more powerful team, and a team that more fits the Avengers logo and the Avengers idea. But that's it for me. That's just my ideas. I'm going to go deeper into the MCU and look at different other ways they could have fixed it, because I do think that as much as a lot of people love to bash the MCU, and I think it's a good thing to bash it at times. I mean, criticism is always good to have. I think that at the same time, you need to, if you're going to bash something, you should have the idea in your head of what it could have been. You know what I mean? Like, what could this have been? It could have been better. Are they literally trying to work something that's unworkable? They're trying to make something work that can't work? Or is there ways that could have worked, but they just made the wrong choices? That is the question. I think mostly for the MCU, Star Wars, stuff like that, those big pop culture fandoms, those actually can work. You have to use them right. You have to do a good job of it. I think mostly go back to the comics, look at the comics, figure out what you can do from there, and then turn it into a bigger thing. But anyway, that's the video. You can like and subscribe for the content, and I'll see you guys again in another video.